Hey friends, Rick from BCW Supplies here with the Fab Breakdown, your weekly breakdown of all news and events, flesh and blood. Let's go ahead and get into it. Today is Friday, July 29th, and we have a lot to talk about. We just got a band restricted update from Legend Story Studios. We also have the results of the Road to Nationals and the Class Constructed meta format. We also have the results from the calling in the Netherlands, as well as the European Championship battle. So a lot to kind of dissect and where it kind of leaves the current meta. We're also going to talk about some upcoming events towards the end. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the news. All right, so in the news this week, we have the band restricted update that came out today, and we see from Legend Story Studios that they've gone ahead and banned your friend, the Stubby Hammers here. This is a generic piece of equipment from Monarch. It was preemptively banned in Blitz because of an upcoming hero before Uprising was released. At the spoiler season, we saw that it was probably banned because of Phi. This hero really takes advantage of a go wide, small attack and would get the benefit multiple times of destroying your Stubby Hammers. So they figured it would equate to about 5 to 7 points of damage on a combo turn, and roughly that would be about 30% of a player's health out of just the extra damage from breaking the Stubby Hammers in Blitz. So they said that that needed to go. Well, now here in Class Constructed, at the conclusion of the Road to National, they went ahead and banned it. They let it have a full season. The results that they expected to see were about what they expected to see, according to the article over at fabtcg.com. So long, farewell. We barely got to have fun with the, but it was, I think, the right call. The equipment does a lot of damage for that one particular deck. Now, I will say that there are decks out there that can disrupt it. There are decks out there that can handle that extra damage. Not necessarily the effect, but there are cards out there that can break equipment. There are cards out there or heroes out there that can just block very efficiently on a combo turn. So I understand why it had to go. We didn't see the dominance out of Phi that we saw out of heroes like Bravo, the star of the show, in the previous season. So we'll get into that as we talk about the events that have taken place. And they said that our next update would come at the end of August for the ban and suspended list. So just kind of keeping our eyes on this meta as we're getting ready to go into a new skirmish season, but that's going to be Blitz. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I don't really know that it needed to be banned, but I'm also somebody who plays Phi and I enjoy playing with Stubby Hammers, and now I can't. There are replacement cards, however, and I think that the default replacement card here is going to be Tiger Stripes. If you're not familiar with this card, it will do incremental damage over the course of the game and additional damage here and there. You're probably going to get about 3 to 5 extra points of potential damage out of this card, whereas before you would get that out of breaking it for one turn. So you're going to kind of stretch out that gain over the course of the game versus the just the all-in-one turn. So that's going to do it for the ban suspended. Not a lot else to cover there. We didn't have any living legends to talk about, and we'll talk about that next. All right, so we did have the conclusion of Road to Nationals for this past weekend, and we have the results in. There is a list over on fabtcg.com right here. I put it up on the screen for you that is showing you the results of the Road to Nationals for the Class Constructed side of things. Now, Road to Nationals this year was split into 2 different formats. You had the Uprising Draft and you had the Class Constructed. Out of all of the Class Constructed events, we are left with the results of Prism actually being the #1 deck with the most wins, which is really awesome to see. We also had Viscerai in there. We have Phi, we have Briar, and a slew of other heroes did well during this Road to National season. And so Fi wasn't as dominant, even though it had stubby hammers. There were clearly decks that were beating it, and there were clearly decks that were winning events, and it wasn't all just about one hero, which is a refreshing change. Normally, in the past couple of seasons of Class Constructed, we've had seasons where there's been like a truly dominant deck and a counter or a hard counter deck to it, where those two decks would rack up the majority of the wins, or you'd get a triangle of doom, if you will, where you had, you know, the top three decks, and one deck was outperforming all the other two. So I'm looking at you, Bravo, star of the show. So there we go. This seems like a fitting end to the road to nationals. Very well balanced, it appears. I mean, not every hero is represented. Sorry, Azaleas. It is a hyper-aggressive meta currently, in my opinion. I think we may see that shift as more control decks are figuring out ways to beat heroes. Now, that's going to tie us into another section we'll get to here about the Living Legend status. We had 30 points, or 30 wins rather, for Prism. Prism fell short of hitting Living Legend by 2 points. Currently, Prism is sitting at 998 Living Legend points, needs 1,000 to be retired out. And when they updated that list, social media kind of took off a little bit. There were some conversations happening on Twitter about how Prism is warping the format, and in fact, how there are heroes out there that can really disrupt these hyper-aggressive decks. Bravo Showstopper's one of them. Heroes that can play pummel, another one. They're lining up these big attacks, and these hyper-aggressive decks don't want to block, and there are on-hit effects out there. There are cards like Pummel that push damage up over just minimal blocking that's going to strip a card out of their hand as well, really throwing off their game plan. But unfortunately, those decks have a weakness, and that weakness is Prism. And Prism being able to line up a bunch of auras and continue sustaining pressure, plus that snowball effect of layering the different effects that these auras give, plus the constant threat of an Arclight Sentinel ending your turn if you try to set something up that's all combo-wombo-y. And I understand why people are frustrated playing against Prism, and yes, it does wreck playing some of the heroes that could stop a lot of these aggressive decks. But I do think out of all the heroes that have hit Living Legend or close to hitting Living Legend in Class Constructed, Prism is not the most unfair deck. So that's just my personal opinion, but 2 points away, I would expect to see Prism hit Living Legend relatively anytime soon. And so that's just something to keep an eye out. If you're getting into the game of Flesh and Blood, I don't know that I would invest into getting into Prism. I don't think it's going to be around as a viable deck in the Class Constructed meta. A lot of fun to play though. Very frustrating, plays differently, a lot of fun though. All right, so that's going to do it for the Living Legend part, and we're done talking about the road to nationals. Let's shift our focus now and talk a little bit about the calling that took place in the Netherlands. We saw that both the European Championship and the calling were won by Fi. We saw a very diverse top 8, in my opinion, and this is coming from somebody who's used to seeing 4 and 5 of the same hero make the top 8. We didn't really have that in these two large events. So hats off to the winners, hats off to everybody that got to compete. And you know, hey, Fi is a strong deck. Fi is a real deck. Fi is probably that S tier deck right now that you need to have a game plan against. And again, like we just talked about, there are some heroes out there that have a strong game against it if they can dodge their bad matchup, or until their bad matchup hits Living Legend status anyway. So I'm really excited to see the results. I was really excited to be able to look through some of the deck lists. I think that it was absolutely phenomenal. I really wish there was coverage of these events. This is something that I feel that is slowly starting to lack in Flesh and Blood. We're not getting as much coverage, whether it is on social media or on Twitch. And part of that may just be the time zone difference. Maybe there was some coverage that I missed. I didn't see any. I know that there were people asking, and I didn't see anybody linking to live streams. Somebody may have been vlogging it or doing some YouTube style backpack streaming stuff. I didn't see it. So But I would like to be able to watch the game a little bit more. I think the game is kind of at a pinnacle point right now where we still have organized play. Our organized play is really strong. The game is really fun. In fact, the more people that try it, the more people want to play the game. It's a great game. But we're not seeing the coverage. We're not seeing it on streamed, and we're not seeing the information in a real-time sense. There was a lot of people tweeting the results in the rounds and who was doing what, but we weren't able to watch the gameplay. And I enjoy watching this game being played. So hopefully we'll have some more coverage coming up in the near future. Speaking of the near future, we're going to talk about upcoming events, but first, a word from our sponsor. Hey friends, Rick from BCW here with the product spotlight. Today we're talking about the BCW 3200 count card bin. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is I've seen on social media and in other public forums people asking what is the best way to store your Flesh and Blood collection. And in my opinion, it's the BCW 3200 count card bin. These things are absolutely amazing. They're designed to stack on top of each other and latch together, so you don't have to worry about them sliding anywhere. They're absolutely safe and secure with a latching lid to keep everything in place. The lid actually folds and tucks up underneath itself so it can conserve space for you while you're going through your collection. You have these 4 beautiful rows that are wide enough to house cards and sleeves, cards and top loaders. You have room in the box for tall trading card dividers from BCW to where you can label everything to make it easy to find what you're looking for. And you also have these removable partitions. Now what's great about these is there's little notches on the side where you can lock them into place, and you're able to keep your cards vertical while you are going through and removing cards to build decks or as you grow your collection. Again, the BCW 3200 count card bin is absolutely phenomenal for storing your collectible card games, just like Flesh and Blood. For more information on this and other products offered by BCW, make sure you head on over to bcwsupplies.com today and check out what storage solutions they have available for you. All right, and a special thank you to the fine folks over at BCW Supplies for supporting the content that I create for you here at the Fab Breakdown. Head on over to bcwsupplies.com, check them out, help support the content that I create by supporting the sponsor that helps me create the content. So, it's a circle. All right, now moving forward, let's talk about some upcoming events. We do have a calling getting ready to take place in August in Singapore. That will be the weekend before the Pro Tour number 2, which is taking place in France at the end of August. Prior to all of that, we have the SCG Con here in the United States in Baltimore. I will actually be in attendance at that event. It is going to be a Blitz weekend for Flesh and Blood there. They have a Teams Blitz event on Friday. They have a Blitz Skirmish taking place on Saturday, and then they have the Battle Hardened, which is the Blitz format, on Sunday. Super excited to get into it. I love the Blitz format. Hopefully I'll be able to bring you guys a couple of deck techs on some decks I'm kicking around. May even do a 2-parter with Fi, since there's a couple of different ways to build Fi. Show you guys an easy way to build Fi and play Fi if that's something you're interested in. Leave a comment below. Which hero would you like to see a Blitz deck tech on? I will take it into consideration. I always try to give back to you folks, especially those that watch and support the content. Thank you again, seriously. I love this game and I like making the content, but I really enjoy interacting with you. So if you're going to be at SCG Con in Baltimore, make sure you say hi. I should be there floating around, being my usual self. All right, and finally, let's go ahead and talk about the upcoming Skirmish season number 5. This is an in-store organized play event that kicks off this weekend. Skirmish season number 5 is split into one of 2 options. It'll either be an Uprising sealed event or it will be a Blitz event. Head on over to fabtcg.com to check out what type of event, or find an event close to you to get out there and play Flesh and Blood in the Flesh and Blood for some awesome cold foil prizes, as well as a couple of sick play mats that are in the prize kit. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Fab Breakdown. If you have a hero suggestion for a Blitz deck tech that you'd like to see, leave a comment below. If you have any questions for me, you can also leave a comment below or find me on Twitter. I am normally very active on Twitter and I like to do giveaways. So if you're not following me on Twitter already, make sure to follow me on Twitter. And until next time, get out there and have some fun, play flesh and blood, but most importantly, remember, be kind.